Okay, no announcements. So do we need to make any changes to the agenda, or do I have a motion to accept the agenda as printed for December 11th, 2025?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the agenda for December 11th, 2025, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? The agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for November 12th, 2025. Do we have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh, second, Dan.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the minutes. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes for November 12th, 2025, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. We'll now open the floor for any public comment. And we will now close the public comment portion of the meeting. The next item on the agenda is the RBK Capital Preservation Fund options.
Chair, I'll start this off and then turn it over to Sarah. This was an item that we had intended to provide a discussion on at our last meeting, but ran a little long, so we decided to push it over to this meeting. A member had raised the notion that our non-exclusive 403B plan did not have a traditional capital preservation fund option, and so made that comment to us, and we started looking at it and talking about it with Sarah. And we have a Lord Abbett fund that has some characteristics of a capital preservation fund, but not really in the truest sense of the word. So what we wanted to do today was to give an overview of the issue to the board, and in service of maybe, if folks agreed with the direction to maybe come back with some specific options. But before we did that, we wanted to make sure you understood the issue within our lineup, and we could have a discussion and answer any questions that you might have. So Sarah put together this great background. I'll turn it over to her to explain the issue, and then we can have a discussion afterwards.
All right. Thanks, Tim, and good afternoon, everyone. So as you all know, the 403B plan has historically offered the Empower Guaranteed Long-Term Fund, which is a general insurance product that is a stable value-like product, does a great job as a capital preservation option, but unfortunately, Empower only makes this option available in the exclusive 403B plan because of concerns Empower has around excessive cash flows in the non-exclusive plans or potential unpredictability of flows into or out of the plan. So instead, historically, the non-exclusive plan has been offering that Lord Abbett short duration fund, as Tim mentioned. Now, you might recall this, or maybe not, but at the last meeting, we talked about this Lord Abbett fund. It's positively rated by our research team, meaning we'd consider it a top manager in the space. Its fees are below median, so no concerns with the strategy itself. But it's not a cash option, meaning they can have some longer dated bonds in there in that portfolio. And as we show later in the deck, plans tend to offer other options as capital preservation options, either ones that are fully guaranteed, like the Guaranteed Long-Term Fund, or ones that are basically investing in cash, like a money market fund. They use them as capital preservation options because even though the short duration fund is very safe, historically speaking, and its performance has been great, those funds just by definition may see some changes in their value when interest rates move up and down, just because of that longer duration of some of its holdings. So what are your options? Just to do a quick rundown or through the options there. So we talked about money market funds. I'm sure you're all familiar with those. These invest in very short-term T-bills or commercial papers. They tend to be very highly regulated. Their goal is to keep a stable $1 share price. at all times. You also have the option of short duration, which you currently offer. You cannot offer general account products like we just discussed. And stable value funds, although they can be made available and there might be flexibility there around the non-exclusive versus exclusive discussion with those funds. You're not even allowed to offer them in a 403B plan in general. So these are also out of the question. The House is looking at a bill potentially next week that may change that, or may we'll see. If this has been on the regulatory docket for a while, but it hasn't really moved yet. So it remains to be seen. We're not holding our breath. We'll continue monitoring the regulatory space, and for progress, there's something that we expect to happen in the future where CITs are allowed, and by definition, stable value options in 403B plans. But as of now, basically, money market funds are the only viable option here. So very quickly, just to preview that, and we'll do a lot more. We'll talk about that a lot more at a future meeting. The key differentiator of money market funds versus low duration is that by law, money market funds are required to only hold highly liquid, high quality instruments at all time. They are very heavily regulated by the 40 Act, and there has been even additional SEC reform in 2023 that regulated them further to ensure high quality holdings and high liquidity of those funds. Low duration funds are regulated just as any other mutual fund option. So they typically have a slightly higher duration. They may have higher yield, but they can also have higher or lower quality depending on the manager itself. Last thing I wanted just to flag, of course, performance when you're assuming less duration risk, when you're investing in cash over the long term, you're not gonna have the same performance as a short duration option, which historically, if you take just a snapshot of the last 15 years, money market funds would have underperformed, not by much, but they have, given the lower duration. But if you look at performance over time, definitely the blue lines show money market performance over 5 and 10 years. The orange is short duration. Definitely short duration is generally above, but you'll see those crucial periods around 2007, 8, or maybe the last couple of years where there is more volatility in the market. That's when money market funds really shine and even outperform shorter duration, given that they hold their stable value, and they hold their NAV steady, their asset value steady, while short duration may suffer some losses here or there. So I'll leave it there. Want to see if there are any questions about our recommendation. I think staff and RBK feel it's a really potentially a good idea to go back to our manager research team, have them do a search for money market options that can be offered here, and to bring them to you at a future meeting. And we can also discuss with you all maybe some ideas about considerations for implementing that option, whether as an alternative or a replacement to the current short duration option. So happy to talk more about that at a future meeting. For now, any initial thoughts or feedback on our recommendation here to proceed with the search?
Well, this was Dan, go ahead.
Oh, I did have a question, and again, I never thought to ask this before, but like normally in my personal investment accounts, there's always a place where the cash goes, that some cash will build up and go into, I designated, say, a government, whether it's a government bond fund or a money market fund. So, but it sounds like in the 403Bs, we don't have a bucket where any cash goes and it's just all reinvested in fund shares. Is that what happens?
So my understanding is that for this particular non-exclusive plan, the Lord Abbott Fund acts as that cash vehicle.
I see.
But we
So
can
this,
come,
this,
yeah.
a short duration bond fund is acting as the cash vehicle. I see. And someone
Yeah,
is saying, I want, and a participant is saying, geez, I want something safer, basically. I want something a little bit safer is not the right word, but less volatile, say.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
I got you.
And the fund's duration here, I think, is typically in the 1 year range. We're talking about will vary by fund, but I believe this fund, the Lord Abbott Fund, has a duration of 1.5 to 2 years at this point. Whereas a money market will have maybe 6 to 9 months or even 3 months duration. So yeah, so definitely there is a good argument for yes, it's definitely a safe option, and long term it's Lord Abbott in particular has really done a very good job preserving the capital and even returning a healthy yield on top of that. But by definition, with that longer duration, there will just be more risk there.
Thank you.
And moving,
That makes sense.
so in moving to a money market fund, that will match as closely as we can match the offerings that are in the inclusive 403B. Is that correct?
It will, yes. So both are serving. So the Empower Guaranteed Fund is generates a small healthy yield, but its generally main priority is to preserve that the asset base and the capital, and a money market fund does the same thing, but not instead of doing it through an insurance contract, it does so by investing in cash, which tends to be very and then we'll have this if it's a government money market fund, it will have that basically that stable $1 NAV guarantee. So so its net asset value is pretty much guaranteed to stay at $1 at any time. So whenever you transact on it, you are guaranteed to get that same level. So they both try to achieve that same result in slightly different ways.
Yeah, and you know, when we first started the 403B, obviously we all had all of the same investment options. And then this is the first time that there's little change between the two because of exclusive and non-exclusive. And so my personal feeling is to try to get them as closely matched as we can, since that's exactly where we were prior to this issue of the exclusive and non-exclusive. So this, I think we're heading in the right direction, and I look forward to seeing recommendations for money market funds.
Thank you. Dan, did
Dan?
you have?
Yeah, I did have one more question, and this probably came because I worked for a few years at Dwight Asset Management, which was a stable value manager in Burlington before it ran into troubles in the financial crisis, as you may recall. But I do remember that at least Treasurer Pierce really didn't like stable value. I wonder, John, and this is really a question for you because this is going back in time, I think, but there was a sense that stable value, and I know we're not talking about stable value as an option here, but conceptually, that it wasn't a good investment for investors, that it wasn't a good long-term solution. And I guess my question, John, is I'm wondering, is that the reason? Because as we're saying, a money market is also probably from a long-term investment perspective. This sounds maybe a bit paternalistic, but I thought we were trying to discourage perhaps retirees from putting excessive amounts of money in low yielding. I mean, I don't know. But I don't. Again, since we're doing the difference between a short duration bond fund and a money market fund is, I mean, either of those options are going to, I would guess, significantly underperform the stock market over the long term. So I don't know, is that, if there was sort of an ideological reason that you remember, John, or is that no?
Yeah, there's no question. When we were building the funds, there was a lot of discussion about this. And in that same discussion, we also have the option of going alone in the open market. And so what we wanted to try to do is have we tried to have a flavor for everybody. And I think one of the advantages that we do have compared to, say, a Vanguard or Fidelity is that we have representatives on the ground and are checking in with clients and can explain the difference between, because if someone is very not risk tolerant, and they just want to say, I don't want to lose any money, that's where they typically would sort of head. So, yeah, I remember having those discussions, and we figured that we needed to have that to have a complete list of investment options.
Yeah, and Dan, it's a really important part of the portfolio towards the, obviously in the retirement years when that sort of yield seeking isn't as big an imperative as it is earlier on. And that's where I think that's what is kind of animating this conversation, to have that piece there. I recall talking about this topic with Beth, and I think her concerns with stable value often had to do more with the mechanics of the sort of layered insurance products that are in those vehicles. So it was less an ideological bent against a low yielding safe investment fund as it was against the particularities of that type of fund. I think it also had some limitations if you were going to move out of it, like there would be like a year put on it to be able to really move in and out of that fund. So there's some practical limitations that I remember, because I remember some of these conversations as well with Beth, and I think that's what was animating those concerns at the time. With the 403B plan, we are in this funny regulatory environment where we don't have options to certain things, not because of any real logical basis, but because of federal law that just says, no, this type of plan that's no different from a 457 really can't be in this kind of vehicle. So we're working within some of those practical constraints here and wanting to find a vehicle that serves that really important preservation function, particularly for people late in their careers, early in retirement, and at the same time kind of meets all the legal requirements of what can and cannot be in a 403B plan.
Thank you, Tim. That answers, and John too, that answers all my questions, and sorry if I'm belaboring a point.
No,
These are all excellent discussion.
Great discussion. Appreciate it. Yeah, and I echo what was just said by Tim, and it's definitely for plans that, if and when stable value is available as an option, I think we can definitely have a discussion then. But we do have plenty of plans that decided to offer money market funds instead. There isn't, I don't think there's one right answer there either.
So I think
go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was just going to say, I wanted to make sure that we had our marching orders clear. And I think what we would try and do is work with Sarah and her team to, maybe probably no more than 3 options for the board with some considerations about why one versus the other, and have that discussion. Also kind of include into that a discussion of whether it's an addition or a replacement. And we could bring that to you at a future meeting if that sounds reasonable to the board.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
Any other board members have concerns about that? Sounds like a good plan. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, next item on the agenda, Health Spring transition update. Has something happening at Health Spring?
Yeah, what's been going on?
Yeah.
So, I wanted to have both Steve and Shawnee here so that you could hear directly from them about how this transition is going. From our perspective, I think it's going very well. It's always a big, complicated effort to do this kind of a transition. A couple bumps along the way, but mostly very strong, positive transition to date with a lot of milestones already hit. We thought it would just be a good idea to touch base with you folks, hear what you might be hearing as well. But what I thought we'd do is have Steve, with Shauna's help, kind of going through sort of where we've been, what we've been doing for the past couple of months, and what's coming ahead. So, Steve, did you want to share? Looks like you're sharing.
You got it?
Almost. I think it's trying to come through. There it is.
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks. Tim reached out to me and suggested putting something together to provide that insight to you for all the detail that we've been going through in this transition from VBA to HealthSpring. I'm not going to read everything. These couple slides we have are a little bit dense. I'll speak to each slide and provide some summaries, may point some stuff out. If you have questions, please stop as we're going. I'm willing to answer questions as I'm going. I have to look at a screen that's here for me. So Tim, if you see someone raise their hand and I'm just plowing through, please just reach in and holler, and I'll answer a question, or just ask your question and I'll get to it.
Perfect.
In general, what I would say is, the basic question asked of me is, how is the implementation going? How do I compare this implementation to others we've been part of, transitions akin to this, changing carriers? The transition is, I would agree with Tim, it's going smoothly. I think that HealthSpring has been a great partner. They have set a process in place based on the way they do things, but they're not stuck in their own formula, calendar, or the way that they do those things. They've been proactive, and you'll see that as we come through in the discussion that we have here. So it's been very good. And Tim, I realized as I created this is all about like what HealthSpring has done for us. But this has become something that wouldn't be that way if the Vistor staff, Tim, and everybody that works for him weren't as collaborative or as available. For instance, Bill Meckel, I think the HealthSpring team considers you an honorary member of their team. I'm sorry that doesn't add to your paycheck, but Bill has been very valuable in putting things together during presentations. He's kind of the mini IT team for everything going on that's happening. So this is very collaborative in both directions. And without it, it wouldn't be, as Tim says, as smooth as it's been. So in general, customized community, we have to build the plan in HealthSpring's system in the background to all of what we're talking about. So all these items that we're going to discuss and you see here that are happening, HealthSpring is working in the background to build the plan, put the structure together, get the billing together, and do all that. What we're addressing here is kind of some of that upfront stuff that retirees had access to, the Vistor staff had access to directly see and be part of. So that first week of September, shortly after our meeting where this was all approved, these are the finish lines or the lines we've crossed in implementing this program. By the end of October, we had already launched the HealthSpring website for Vistor's retirees. So within a month, they're building stuff in the background and able to have a site where people can go to see information on the Vistor's website. And we were continually updating, and HealthSpring was a valuable part of additional question and answer documents, putting reference to their sites and where you can check doctors and pharmacies and formularies and those kind of things are all happening at this time. By the end of November, and so now I think Justin, you could probably chime in here. I think I saw Justin fall off his chair at how easy dealing with the contract was with HealthSpring. And yes, he's going to fall off again. So it was a relatively simple process. We did have a couple things that there was some red line back and forth, and we did have a couple things to add. And even more recently, there was an adjustment found due to a benefit regarding diabetic supplies and everything and how it had to be handled. And it was very smooth. And how did we work it in or put a supplement to it? So things worked really well there. The open enrollment meetings went off without a hitch. Frequently asked questions were something that was always updated or discussed to update after every meeting. We learned something new from questions from retirees, and Shauna and her team were very active in responding, but also putting together something that could be shared afterwards for the groups to look at. In December, currently, as we're sitting here, we're getting through eligibility files, ID cards and welcome kits are due to be mailed. Shauna, do you have an actual date regarding that?
Yes, I do. So the ID cards are actually mailed on December the 10th, which was yesterday. And then the welcome kits, those will start hitting the mail today.
And can you just continue on the welcome calls? A little bit of what is a welcome call? Who's going to get one and when do they start?
Yeah, so the one thing that I would also mention is the welcome kit. It will include a welcome letter, a handbook, and an extra benefit guide, and an evidence of coverage, which is a really detailed description of the plan benefits. And then the extra benefit guide goes into detail on how they can access the extra benefits, like the vision and the caregiver support and the fitness program. So it's really a kit that will help the retirees fully, understand the plan's benefits and features of HealthSpring, but then also how to take advantage of everything that the plan has to offer. And then we'll also conduct welcome calls. So we will start doing welcome calls towards the end of December, going into January. We will make 3 attempts to reach out to the retirees and just welcome them to the plan. Address any questions that they have, make sure that they have continuity of care, make sure that they have, understand everything that the plan has to offer. And I think most importantly, it's really to start building that trusting relationship with the retiree. And that's in addition to the fact that they have access to a dedicated customer service team where they can call in and ask questions. So that thus far, we've seen probably about 700 calls going into a queue that is designated for individuals that are not currently enrolled. But again, we'll have the welcome calls as well as the dedicated customer service team. The other thing that I would mention too, they will be receiving their HealthSpring Flex card, which is a card that will hold the incentive dollars that they can earn for completing healthy activities. So in addition to the ID card that was again dropped in the mail yesterday, they'll also be receiving a HealthSpring Flex card.
Thanks. Thanks for the color on that. Open enrollment meeting. So the activity that happened, we had a bunch of virtual meetings, 4 in-person meetings. We did some regional stuff. The attendance at these was great. I think some of them were bigger than what we would have expected. One of the virtual meetings was hundreds of people.
Yeah, several hundred individuals.
Yeah.
And to the point where what we did, because typically what we would like to do during a virtual presentation, at the end, we'll open it up for a Q&A. But because that attendance was so large, what we did was we closed the Q&A. We allowed the retirees to ask questions in the chat. And then through those questions, we developed either the Q&A, or if we felt like it was a personal matter, we would engage a service coordinator to reach out directly to that retiree. So I think that was very beneficial. And, thanks to Bill
we
for
would still
collecting that
be going-
information.
We would still be going through that presentation with all the
Yes.
questions that came through and how it was. So it was a smart way to engage and allow retirees to ask their questions and not feel frustrated like time got in their way. And then all of those questions were put together in a document and memorialized and shared. So that was
And
great.
we had some retirees that attended all virtual sessions and or some in-person meetings. So they were highly educated.
I'll get to the implementation calls, but also the HealthSpring staff is, train the trainer, in-person sessions, helping with the VSTRS staff to understand the plan, how to deal with it, how to get into the system and do things, and is also working with NEA, Mark Hage and Bobby Joe for retirement workshops that they go out and help with too. So very collaborative. All sides are working well together. The implementation calls, the expectation, I think, was that we would have a weekly implementation call. We have multiple implementation calls weekly. I think that's what's helping to keep this a well-oiled machine as we're going through. We are really dealing with things in real time. It's not just once a week, and if something hits, the team scrambles and Bill or Tim are scrambling to resolve an issue. We're connecting so many times together virtually or in person that it's almost real time if something hits. There's no time wasted as things have come up to be smoothed out.
I think so. In addition to those implementation calls, so between Tim, Nicole, Steve, myself, and then Jen Cutterback, who's my manager, we will have a call prior to the broader team implementation call. So that's been very beneficial and collaborative so that we can really discuss the things that matter going into the broader implementation call. So we understand the priorities and then, the priorities for each call.
And one of the hiccups Tim mentioned was around the customer service experience and the calls. So retirees could call in and ask questions, and they did, and it was a little bit confusing. So what did they have to hit? They were going to the wrong area. We early on recognized that some of the representatives were confused because Vistor wasn't officially a client yet as this was going on. People were getting forwarded to the sales area. So Shauna and Jen, she mentioned her boss, the regional director, worked to dedicate a team of customer service representatives, 10, if I'm remembering that
Yes.
correctly. 10 representative, well, there it is. Yes, I'm remembering it because it's on the screen. 10 representatives were set aside, and there was special training for them on what the VSTRS plan was. They were sent documents to keep in a separate area, so it was easy for them to access that because things weren't totally loaded at that time in the system. And it did help to smooth out that customer experience. We continue to keep on top of that. We do get feedback from the retirees. There have been a couple other instances where we've had to address some additional training or wording and how to deal with the retirees. But it ended up being a hiccup rather than a problem. And we worked through that. And you can see on the screen here kind of what were the main things people were calling in for and why. And none of these questions are surprising when we enter this. When am I going to get my AD card? Where's my provider? Those kind of things. And we do have, and we did proactively communicate that we do have some provider facilities that aren't considered in the network. And how did we deal with them and where are we going to go? And we'll address that as we go. So I'll stop here maybe just to breathe a little bit and stop speaking at you. Are there any questions here regarding this piece? Yet?
Steve, I actually want to just jump in before that and say, that I appreciate the notion about our office. And I think we have, our team has been really impressive. Our retirement division team. One thing we've also really benefited from is, from our leadership in the treasurer's office with Mike and David. Mike in particular has been really hands-on in this. And, I think, for example, a couple weeks ago, he sent out another letter to all of our retirees that I think actually was really helpful. And it was pretty remarkable that we started getting responses saying thank you. It's not usually people don't write to say thank you. The folks that write in typically have a different motivation. But I think that kind of communication has been really helpful. And, with we'll talk about some of the provider experience, but, with when something came up with Dartmouth or with UVM, Mike's been able to reach out and make calls and help us connect people. And it's been a real benefit in this transition. So I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. And so that, the whole office has been very supportive of the work we're doing, because it's fallen, our front office, the folks who answer the call are really having the brunt of the work day in, day out, hearing from people and explaining it. I hear it every day when I walk by, but everyone's kind of pitched in, up to David rolling in with a bunch of treats and pastries and coffee for everyone yesterday. So I've been really grateful for all the support within the treasurer's office as well as this has been going.
Yes.
And, oh, go ahead, Shauna.
No, I was just going to say that's just kind of demonstrates the collaboration and the partnership that we've had thus far, and we, it will definitely continue. The other thing that I was going to mention on the customer service, so from the feedback that we've received and why we set up the designated representatives of 10 agents or 10 agents. That's because the eligibility wasn't in the system. Now that the eligibility is in the system and the plan will be effective on January 1, come January 1, the representatives will automatically see that retiree's information. So I think the experience will actually even further improve. And we also have service coordinators. So the service coordinators will reach out if someone has an issue or a concern, or it's a highly sensitive situation. So we can do that outreach in addition to the standard customer service team.
So when we came to you in August and presented what this option was and what it might look like and what the cost was, one of the big hurdles was, who is HealthSpring? And it's a question to ask because it's a new name taking effect 1/1. Shauna and the team and HealthSpring did not shy away from understanding that was an issue. And so proactively in some cases, necessarily in others, there is outreach to make sure that our community understood who is HealthSpring. You can see here putting together mailings, talking to key providers and hospitals in our network across the nation in different places where we know we had some big hot spots to talk to them about. This is a new entity. Here is who we are. These people are involved. Here's your contacts to communicate with us, so that was happening and being done before the plan got put into place when retirees start using it, and they don't get the pushback in these key areas of we're not familiar, we don't accept this. So they addressed it head on. The proactive part was locally within Vermont. Shauna recognized and called out, like, what are the medical societies or areas where these people get together? Are there any places where we can put together articles and help them? You can see bullet number 3, a platinum sponsor of the Vermont Medical Society meeting, attending, presenting, providing articles for them, so that name is getting out there and these people do understand and get to know, like, oh, this is we now know who they are. We're aware of them. That knee jerk, like we'd never heard of this, is not going to be there when members go to when they go to see their providers or these new facilities. UVM MC was obviously another thing we dealt with. They were considered out of network. We worked in the process, and Tim and team were a very big part of making sure that the negotiations with UVM Medical Center were to be put in place. It was one of our performance guarantees, and those negotiations are continuing. And they're in red line stage and contracting and putting things together. So it's no longer, we have an arrangement and UVMMC said that they will see our providers and there shouldn't be an issue. We're working towards and close to, I hope I'm not stepping over a line, Shauna, close to creating an arrangement where they are a network provider and that just goes away. We did recognize through communication that Dartmouth Hitchcock was in that same spot. We didn't realize that as we were going through. Shauna mobilized her team quickly and the contract team, the provider liaison team, to have discussions. And this is one of the spots where the treasurer stepped in to, hey, we're Vermont and we're big and we're close. Would you be willing to? Can you help us out? And it really did go a long way to help extend those discussions. And they are actively in place and also running along the same lines as UVMMC. They're not to a point yet where they're redlining a contract, but when we found out about this, it was a definite, it was communicated as a definite, we're not moving forward, we're not going to be in. And with that change, the treasurer, with us recognizing it, stepping in, the engine has started again and we're moving down the track the same way that we did with UVMMC. So we've had direct communication with Health Springs provider liaison, and we get weekly updates when we connect on how these negotiations are going.
Yeah, and that's just an example of how, again, the collaboration and the partnership to make things happen has been really successful.
And so what are we dealing with currently? A medical claims history file. This allows insight so that retirees aren't having delays in continuing their benefit, the treatments they're having. Prior authorizations can be handled in a more smooth manner than just restarting from zero. To be honest, the file share between VBA and the prescription drug company has been clunky, but Shauna and her team have been resilient in keeping up with those communications and hammering on our calls, and we've been doing everything we can to supplement their efforts. Things are moving, but this is the spot where I would say getting that data from the incumbent to help us in the transition has been fitful or clunky. I think we have the information, Shauna. I think we're now to a point where we have the information with any of these that we're identifying, and we're moving forward and we're going to be able to help out. But again, that's been because of the dedication of all involved.
And I think this is an area where it is very crucial for us to get this information because the experience that a retiree has at the point of sale, if they are getting a denial or they don't know about a non-formulary drug, it's very important for us to proactively notify the retiree. So this is going to create a much smoother transition. So with that claims file that we received from VBA, there's could be medical claim history that will support or satisfy a prior authorization requirement, so we can automatically or proactively manage that so they don't need a prior authorization in the future. And then also just notifying the retirees if they have a non-formulary drug or a drug requires prior authorization or if it requires step therapy, so we can automatically notify the retiree And those notifications are scheduled to be dropped in the mail on December the 22nd. And then that way the retiree is, again, proactively notified, but they will also receive a one-time fill within the first 90 days. So they will not be without their medication. It will just allow time for them to work with their physician and work with HealthSpring to get an exception or find an alternative medication.
So I identify here, and referencing this bullet point with what Sean is just talking about, we did get the crosswalk. So some of these things, much of this in December and now is happening real time. And just recently, we did get the information that showed us how the employees were identified from one report to a next so that we could align that communication that Shauna just referenced. So that has been done and the letters are being dropped. We are preparing. So we've done this. We're ready to go for January 1, but now we're not resting on our laurels. What happens January 1? People may still be confused. They're going to have questions. So we are dealing with what's customer service look like? What are the times that call center is open? How are people going to deal with it? What's the process? So we're, again, proactively trying to deal with what might be the problem. We don't have evidence that there's going to be a problem. We hope with all the education that, and we assume the vast majority will be okay, but there could be instances where people need some help. And we know that the process is in place and ready to go for us. Sarasota Memorial Hospital is something that we know will be an issue. It's something we've known is going to be an issue. Right now on VBA, Sarasota Memorial Hospital is not a network hospital. Some of the physicians associated with that hospital network aren't accepting this plan as in network. The hospital doesn't accept it. They're not easy to work with, but the members are dealing with that now. We have had efforts to try and kind of knock that loose along the lines with Dartmouth Hitchcock and UVMMC. It's still been difficult. The outreach is still happening. We are aware that there's one significant provider group in the area that currently doesn't provide for VBA, but is a HealthSpring contracted provider organization, a bunch of doctors. So that's a positive. But we are still trying to kind of knock on the door at Sarasota and get them to maybe change their ways or at least have some kind of agreement. Retirees recognized in the communications, education sessions that this is the way it is now. They're frustrated. And they're glad that, we're continuing to try on their behalf. And then we
Steve,
did have, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that we did host a special call for residents in Sarasota County and the surrounding counties. So we have thousands of other providers that are either in the network or accepting the plan. And we also have a provider liaison team that will reach out to the provider on the member's behalf to educate them about the HealthSpring plan, the VSTRS plan benefits, that they have the same in and out of network, and then they can also help them find alternative providers if needed. So we do have that dedicated provider liaison team, and again, that's in addition to our standard customer service.
And then the most recent thing that happened. Oh, was there a question?
Yeah, I got a question. Is the Sarasota hospital also part of the Villages area of Florida? Because there was a concern about the Villages too.
Yeah, so the Villages is a couple counties over. So Sarasota Memorial Hospital is not located in the Villages, or I'm sorry, yes, Sarasota County is not in the Villages or vice versa. But there are a handful of providers, and I would say individual providers that don't accept Medicare Advantage or many Medicare Advantage carriers. So, but the main hospital systems and main provider groups do accept.
So how many members are we talking about that are being affected now with VBA, or just the fact that Medicare Advantage plans aren't being accepted in this section of Florida.
And it's, I believe it's 47, so a little under 50 retirees. Mhm.
Thank you.
And then most
Welcome.
recently, within the last week, we were doing some sharing and test files being shared. And it was misconstrued that the file was a test file from VSTRS, and it was handled as though it was a real live file. And it created an issue in enrollment communication. Letters were sent to people that were not part of the plan, chose not to be part of the Medicare Advantage plan. And it created, first of all, they got a communication that said they were, that would be confusing, but that also prompted CMS to disenroll some people. And Shauna, I'll ask for a little bit there, but HealthSpring identified the issue, brought it to our attention. We had a meeting, it's being dealt with, and we're working through in a positive way to correct that and get people back to where they need to be.
Yeah, so what happened, if a retiree, say, had elected the VHI, VSTRS 65 plan and then an individual PDP plan in the marketplace, once we submitted our enrollment to CMS, it automatically disenrolled them from their PDP plan. But now that we have disenrolled them, CMS automatically reverts them back to the PDP that they had elected. We are also doing outreach calls to these 92 retirees, explaining what happened and apologizing for the issue.
And we've gone a little bit over, and I don't want to end on a negative because this whole thing has been very positive. It's been very collaborative. The difference that I see here is the collaboration and the outreach and work from both sides working together, VSTRS and HealthSpring. And HealthSpring, I would characterize as proactive in putting this implementation together. They're not just sticking to the formula they're used to. They're working with VSTRS to meet them where they need to be and meet the retirees where they are. So overall, this has been I agree with the way Tim started it. It's been a very positive implementation. And I think we're well set for success coming into the beginning of this new plan and new offering.
So thanks, Steve and Sean. I really appreciate that. I wanted to kind of give this was a big item for us at the board level, late summer, early fall, and I wanted to just bring it back to let folks know that, there's been a lot going on. In the meantime, we're really committed to making this as smooth a transition as possible. And now, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer them.
I think once the ID and the welcome kits come, I think there's going to be a collective sigh throughout the entire state that, we haven't been abandoned. I mean, when I go to the grocery store, I get stopped. It's like, I haven't got my ID card yet. It was like, oh, right, all right, it's coming. It's coming.
The grocery
And,
store.
my doctor isn't on the list. You'll get the list, and I go to the website. And so all of the things that you heard in all of the presentations that you've done, which I have gotten feedback from retirees that they were they thought they were very helpful and helped set the stage with this transition. And the other thing is, and we've already talked about it, we've got two transitions going on. We've got a brand new entity coming to Vermont, and we have, we're transferring from a Blue Cross Blue Shield product to a new product. So we have an excellent product coming in, but nobody knows the name. And I think the legwork that you've done, as Steve, as you said, the two-prong approach, I think I'm convinced that we're in a good space. Anybody have a question?
Thanks for your time. I know we went a little bit over, but
Oh, no, but this is so important.
Oddly exciting stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for all the work and the update. I truly appreciate it. And your outreach for those members in Florida. that are already in the hole because Medicare Advantage plans are not being recognized, and trying to champion for them to get them recognized. I appreciate that effort.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for the
you.
time.
Okay, new teacher assessment. Tim?
Chair, thanks. I think we can make up. We have a grab bag of smaller items for the rest of the agenda. The new teacher assessment, that was our early effort. I put a memo together, so this is all in there, and hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at it. But the bottom line is this is an assessment that we levy on school districts for new teachers that were first hired after 2015. It was an early effort to pre-fund our OPEB plans. What it does now is it offsets some of the ADEC. So we receive upwards of $8-9 million from the schools to offset the $99 million ADEC requirement for this year. By law, the per teacher amount goes up by our rate of inflation every year. Our rate of inflation was 3%, so it's really simple math. There's not much more to it than that, but the law does require approval from the board. So we are recommending that the board approve the fiscal year 27 new teacher assessment of $1,649, and happy to answer any questions about that.
But not only does the amount go up every year, but I'm assuming with new hires, the amount and the number of people being assessed also goes up.
That's correct. And that's why you
Yeah.
see, that's why I put the chart in the memo of the amount of revenue we get per year. I think this year for fiscal 27, I think we're anticipating not quite $10 million, 9 something. It's a pretty steady march up.
Yeah, that's great. Questions? Someone comfortable making the motion to accept the amount?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second this, Dan.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Director's memo, Mr. Director.
Excellent. This is something that I enjoy putting together a couple times a year to kind of step back, take a broader view of where we've been, look ahead a little bit where we're going. Like to focus on sort of what's going on in the office and the incredible team we have here in the retirement division. So always try and flag who's new, who's coming in. One thing that I'm struck by is the stability that we have achieved in the office, and particularly the retirement division. When I first started in this position, we had a change in treasurers. We had a lot of change within the office, a lot of change within the retirement division. It felt very, it was a little too much change going on all at once, particularly within the retirement division. And that's really stabilized. I think I credit it a lot to Nicole, who couldn't be at this meeting today, but she's an excellent manager. I think it's helped create a really strong and positive environment within the retirement division. And so I'm very grateful for that stability that it's provided, because we do have a wonderful team. And as as people get more years in these positions, it just, everything runs a little bit more smoothly. So that's a really exciting part of this. And then the rest of it, I just wanted to kind of centralize some of our recent work, reflect on the actuarial work we've done. I put in our recent presentation where David and I went over to the Joint Pension Oversight Committee and shared with them the results of our evaluations. Wanted to highlight some of the work we've done in the with our pension guide, which I'm thrilled to be able to present to you folks today, that our Visitors Pension Guide now is a thing, and active employees can read something that's plain language and easily digestible to learn about their benefits. That is thrilling to have that finished, and we are now going to get to work replicating it for the other systems. Took a while on the front end because we were doing a lot of style, figuring out what kind of style we wanted to adopt, what level of detail, all that business. So I don't really have much more on this, other than to, be available to answer any questions and just, again, be very grateful for the opportunity to work with this incredible team that I get a chance to work with.
And congratulations on the award.
Yes, we're number one. These awards are kind of like a good housekeeping seal of approval for pension systems, that we meet, basic fiduciary responsibilities, funding metrics. And so I really hadn't been on my radar before. And when I realized that, and I found out that we met all of the criteria, it became a no-brainer to fill out the form.
Excellent. Secretary updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple, basic documents to go through. First of which, the updated 2026 calendar. There is one notable change from the schedule I think we all know and love at this point. That being that in November, Veterans Day actually falls on the Wednesday that would normally be our meeting. So preemptively, I placed it during the 12th, but would be happy to change it if it would be better for other people's schedules. Going through, we also have an ethics memo, basically just updating everyone on the current expiration date of their ethics training that was provided. We have a couple coming up, but everyone is in good standing. And finally, we also have a status of everyone's terms and expiration dates for those. There are none coming up this year, so very easy going for board members. I would be happy to answer any questions people have or make updates to any of these documents as you see fit.
Any questions for Bill? Thanks, Bill.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted
So following the VMers board meeting, I will be sending out a bunch of updates. So keep an eye on your emails. And for some of you, your new email addresses, because we will be sending these all out to the new SharePoint accessible emails. So that way we can move forward with the partner email accounts for the new year.
So Bill, so that's going forward from today, or will you start that in the new year?
The new year will have the calendar updates and everything for everything in the new email. So, because we want to keep all communication with these new partner accounts if possible. So that should help give us the good grounding of starting with, that's where everyone's invitations are going to be.
Perfect. And thank you for your help getting me in.
Help.
Next item on the agenda is the reappointment of Dr. Lasek to the Medical Review Board.
Mr. Chair, Brianna Howard, who manages our disability retirement program and engages with our medical review board, will present this item.
Great. Hi, Brianna.
So much. Hi. So Dr. Lasek is due for being reappointed to the board. He was appointed a couple years ago for a 2-year term. He's kind of the first person that we had on the board that we initiated this new process of when somebody's appointed, setting a limit to that appointment in terms of the length of time the person would serve. Previous practice was to appoint a member to the board for an indefinite amount of time, but we felt it was best practice for the initial appointment, have there be a limit to that time so we could just review and make sure that the member is a good fit still for the board, that they still want to be on the board. And it also just sets for when somebody is looking to be on the board, it just sets an expectation of what exactly that commitment is going to be. So Dr. Lasek was the first person that we have initiated this process for. So this is why this is kind of coming up for the first time for the boards. Staff wholeheartedly recommends reappointing him to the board. He's a very professional member to have on the board, and his area of expertise is really needed on the board. As a psychiatrist, he provides that expert advice for those applicants coming through who have these mental health conditions for which they are applying. So he's been a really great asset to the board, really thrilled that he wants to continue serving. So the ask today is for the board to make a motion to reappoint Dr. Lassick to the Medical Review Board for a 2-year term starting January 1st, 2026, with the understanding that his reappointment is contingent on approval from all 3 of the boards. His resume was uploaded for review for folks if they just wanted to take a look at his experience, but it's been really great working with him, and he's a really great member to have on the board. So I'm really thrilled that he's interested in continuing to serve.
Any questions? Do we have a member comfortable making that motion to reappoint Dr. Lassick to the board?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Second,
George.
Dan? George, excellent. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. And last but not least, any other business come before the board? You're muted, Tim.
Nothing from staff. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Don't be shy.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Have a wonderful, safe holiday, everybody.
Bye,
As
folks.
well. Take care, folks.
Take care.